So let's delve into those international operations, and that's really what pushed you ahead. Local operations not looking as strong as what we saw on the international front, but it seems that we're starting to see a bit of growth coming through there, and of course a much weaker local currency assisting the overall numbers as well.
Yes, very much so. We enjoyed really buoyant trading conditions internationally. We were assisted to the extent of about 10% by a weaker rand, as our income is in mainly in euros and pounds. So we benefited from that. But overall, there has been increased and buoyant demand for South African racing in the international arena. In particular, we almost doubled the revenue that we received from bookmakers in the UK during the course of the first 6 months.
Are you expecting this kind of performance to continue on the international front, Rhian? Because we've also got to appreciate that it wasn't exactly off a very high base, and of course the currency movements has also affected things quite extensively over the last period.
Yes, our business abroad is healthy. I can't give you a firm view on where the rand is going to be, but I do believe that for as long as our inflation rates are higher than those of our major European trading partners, that the rand will over time continue to decrease. So I think hard currency earnings is important.
Income from local operations increased by a mere 2%. You are also worried about a few policy issues, and I know that you believe that certain things need to be relooked quite extensively. How likely is this to happen, Rhian? And of course, you do say that if we do see policy changes specifically coming through with regards to the open bet system, that could change the fortunes for the local operations extensively.
Yes, at the risk of belaboring the point, our traditional core horse racing and tote betting thereon in the local market is loss making, and that's really not sustainable. We've cut our costs as best we can. We've closed race courses, made ourselves very unpopular in doing so, and still we are loss making on our traditional business. The business that we used to run as clubs is loss making, and that needs to be addressed. We've made extensive representations to the parliamentary committees who are reviewing all aspects of gambling and betting, and we're expecting positive things to emanate from that. In particular, the parliamentary subcommittee has recommended that the open bet be outlawed. There's also recently been developments in Australia where the intellectual property of racing was recognised by the Supreme Courts there, and where the likes of Betware were compelled to pay to bet on the race day data.
It's interesting. I mean, you're saying that you cut costs as much as possible. We've actually seen operating expenses and overheads increasing by around 10%. So, I mean, are you saying that it's the best that you can pretty much do with regards to cutting back on costs and then just waiting for an effective policy change so that you do see this loss-making operation then moving into profit?
Well, I don't think we're not sitting on our hands. Our strategy has been to diversify into other revenue streams. So we have ventured into bookmaking and through Betting World, and you will have seen in the period we took out the minorities out of Betting World. So Betting World is now wholly owned, and we have a healthy share of the fixed odds bookmaking market. And we've diversified into tote betting on other sports, such as soccer and now recently rugby. And these are growing very healthily. Our tote betting on other sports grew by 20% in the 6 months under review.
Rhian, if we could also just touch on, there's a number that I actually noticed, and it's quite interesting that when we see international operations, that increasing, as you mentioned, by around 57%. When you look at the income number, Zimbabwe increasing by 253%. I mean, we can assume that these numbers are relatively low when you compare them to other industries. This is a significant rise, and obviously very indicative of what is actually happening in Zimbabwe. Are you expecting, I'm sure not these kind of numbers, but I'm sure very strong growth down the line?
Yeah, but Zimbabwe is off a really low base, so wouldn't have a material impact on us.
Turkey also playing quite a large role, Australia, Italy, which is quite interesting, the UK as well. I mean, we're looking at very close to 100% growing through in the UK. Again, are you looking at these kind of numbers being sustained down the line?
Yes, the UK in particular is a 7-year fixed price contract that escalates by inflation. So the revenue from bookmakers in the UK will continue for the foreseeable future.
What we've also been seeing, Rhian, is quite a bit of revenue growth being outweighed by higher cost and tighter fixed odds betting margins. Give us an indication of how the margin game could play out. I mean, obviously you were saying that you're not sitting on your hands, you're doing quite a bit there, but competition, of course, is rising significantly.
Yes, on the fixed odds side, our sports betting margins were under pressure in the 6 months. It is a very competitive market, and we believe that they've stabilized now. We had a particularly weak Cape racing season, where there was, I stand to be corrected, but I believe that there was only one visiting trainer, really with the exception of Mike de Kock, who took down Igugu for the JMB Met. But that ended up with very few real competitors. And then also most of the favourites in the feature races came in. So that hurt our fixed odds betting margins. We do believe that they will stabilise over time. So we're not too concerned about that. And again, we're pushing our sports betting products very, very hard. We've recently launched Soccer 10, which has been very, very well received by the market.